Hello, Internet! I'm Ellie the Purple Doofus, and welcome to Buddy Reads, where I read a small selection of a book and review it for you. Today we are covering chapters 9, 10, 11, 12 of part 2 of Murder on the Orient Express by Agatha Christie. I hope you've read up to that point yourself, because I do not want to ruin anything for you. This section, much like the previous two, is just the three gentlemen interviewing suspects. And it's working for the book. It's really working for the book, but I am terrified about the movie now. But let's dive into it. The first one that they decide to interview is a man named Mr. Hartman. And Poirot even decides to pause when he's asking him his name, because he's like, is it really hard, man? Really? At first, Mr. Hartman is just giving him short, curt answers, and he's just like, yes, no, I suppose so. He's saying I suppose so to his own name. Poirot has no idea what's going on, and then Mr. Hartman says, oh, alright, here's the deal. This is who I really am, and he gives him a card, and the card says, Mr. Hartman, Private Eye. And Poirot's like, oh. So it turns out that this Mr. Hartman was hired by Mr. Ratchet to look after him as well. So Mr. Ratchet was really terrified of being killed, and then he ended up being killed. So, yeah. Mr. Hartman describes that he was hired by him, and Poirot says, you know, that probably means that you know what this killer looks like. You've been following him for so long that maybe you've actually seen this guy. And he's like, yes, I have. And Poirot says, really? Can you tell us what he looks like? And Mr. Hartman says, he's a short man, dark, and he's got a high-pitched voice like a woman. Okay. We'll call you. Don't call us. We'll call you. It's just these three gentlemen have trouble believing this man. The two gentlemen that aren't Poirot have trouble believing him, but Poirot's like, I know this detective agency. It's very reputable. There's no reason why he should lie to us about this. And they're like, okay. Good. Then we move on to the large Italian man. And the large Italian is, the most distinctive thing about him is that he has immigrated to America. He doesn't really bring any clues into the case at all. What he does is he confirms the secretary's story. He lets those three gentlemen know that the secretary was not lying. So he pretty much crosses him off the list. Then we have Mary Debenham, who was the woman on the first train who is familiar with the colonel. Mary gives her story. Poirot asks her all of the normal questions. What's your name? What color is your coat? What were you doing that night? And nothing really stood out to me from her testimony. Except for right before she left, she asks if they have crossed the maid off the list, because the maid is sitting in the room and she is in shambles because she believes that these three men suspect her, and, well, she didn't do it. Poirot asks her, was she with you in your room all night long? And she says, of course. She was there 10 minutes to 10. And he turns to the doctor and he says, is there any way that body could have been killed that early? And the doctor says, no. And then Poirot turns to Mary and he says, she is cleared from the case. And Mary says, thank you, I will go tell her. And she leaves. And after she leaves, Poirot is talking with the other gentlemen, and the other gentlemen are like, oh, she didn't do it. She's so pretty. There's no way such a lovely young thing can do something so wrong and heinous. And Poirot's like, oh, I believe she was our prime suspect, gentlemen. And he tells them a bit of dialogue that he heard from her in the previous train trip. A little irritating to me that Agatha Christie did not repeat that for us to let us know exactly what that was. But after he said it, the two gentlemen were like, oh, maybe she did. But she's really pretty. And then we go to our final suspect of this section, who is the maid of the German lady. And the maid recounts her night and how she had to bring a blanket to the older woman. While she was on her way to bring a blanket to the older woman, she bumps into one of the night watchmen. Poirot says, if we invited the night watchman into this room, could you point out the person that it was? And she says, of course. And so they're all sitting there, and the night watchmen come in, and the German lady says, are you kidding? Are there more? And Poirot says, no. She says, it's none of these guys. They're like, how could that be? These are the only night watchmen that we have employed on this train. And she says, I am confident that it is none of these people. The man that you are looking for is short, dark, and has a high-pitched voice like a woman. Poirot is like, huh, interesting. So she has confirmed the story of the private eye, and now all of these clues are starting to kind of sync up. Now it's starting to get really interesting for me as we get closer and closer to pinpointing the murderer. Still terrified for the movie, but it's really working for the book. It's doing splendidly well for the book. If you like what I'm doing, go ahead and click the subscribe button. If you like this video specifically, go ahead and click that like button. And go ahead and leave a comment letting me know how you feel about all of these suspects so far. Any of them jumping out at you and saying, that person did it, without, ruining it for me, but just without, if you know who did it already, then just stay quiet, you. I've been Elliot the Purple-Haired Doofus, and this has been Buddy Reads, reminding you to watch your pajama radius, and I will see you all in the next section of Murder on the Orient Express by Agatha Christie. Toodles!